Hello everyone. Sorry here. Thank you so much for joining me for a Kendra Card Challenge Super Sponsor Hop featuring the products from Craftin' Kimmy Stamps. I'm going to be playing with these two wonderful products here, very winter themed. We have a stencil here with birch trees on it. And then I have this fun winter games stamp set. The actual name for it is Have an Ice Day, but you can see that we have a hockey player, some skiing, and even some figure skating that you can play with. So I'm going to create a fun little scene. I'm going to create a background using this stencil, and then we're going to pull in some... This is scraps, and I think this is going to be perfect. This is from Echo Park, and it's just going to be a bunch of scraps, and I'm going to figure out which scraps I'm going to use to create a card. So, not to wait any longer, let's get right into it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start using the stencil by adding it to a piece of brown cardstock. And the reason I'm using my stamp wheel is because of the sticky mat. I did cut my panel down a bit smaller, so that is an A2 size, and I'm just going to make sure that my whole panel is covered. And the reason I'm not putting the paper down to the bottom is because we have this gap, this 1/4 inch gap here, and I don't want that on top of the paper. So I need to make sure that it's nice and straight and stuck to the mat and centered. So I'm going to kind of create this snowy, whimsy, mystic type background, which is going to be funny because most of it's going to be covered when we're done this card, most likely. I'm just using a Trinity Stamp product here. I love these brushes, but you can use any brush you want. I just find that these give a nice, consistent, smooth result. Especially with the white, I want to make sure that I get a nice coverage here. I'm not going to ensure it's totally solid white. That probably would take forever, if impossible, because white ink always seems to be problematic for me. But I'm going to get a nice coverage, just so that you're not seeing the brown too much through the white, just a little bit. See, that's too much brown. That's the cardstock, and then you can kind of see that's a little bit dark, so we can add a little bit more white there just to smooth it out. These brushes do hold a lot of ink, so you did see me keep dabbing it, but really you don't need to do that too often. You can just keep lightly using the brush, and ink will come off, and you can get a nice coverage here. Of course, there is ink on top of the stencil as well, so that's also moving onto the paper as you swirl around. So what we're going to do next is I'm going to flip the stencil around, and I'm going to kind of, with my best effort, put the stencil over top of the white. Okay, so next I'm going to use some vintage photo. This is just a lighter brown. And the reason I'm doing this is you're not going to fully see it on this card because that brown is quite dark. You're going to kind of see it where it overlaps on the white. And it's going to be so subtle that my camera probably will not pick it up, but I'll bring it to the camera when I think it's done. But what it's going to do is just give it a little bit of more dimension. You have that extra layer, and it's going to look like there's branches laying around, but it'll make it look like the forest is full. So I'm just going to take a little peek to see if that looks good. Yeah, there we go. So that's looking quite nice. And I'm going to put this aside. So there we go. You can kind of see you got different colors. So there's the brown, then you have the cardstock, then you have the brown over top of the white, and then you have your white. So you're getting these different types of textures. And what it's creating is almost like a blizzard type effect in the background. Like it's just, when the snow is so heavy that it almost looks like it's just fog and white outside. So that's what we're going for. Now the next thing we're going to do, actually, I'm going to bring that stencil back in again. I'm going to put it back over where the white is. And the reason I'm doing this is because I want to make sure all the inking was done before I did the snow, because I don't want to ink over the snow. Now I'm just looking for a piece of little tape. I'm just going to do a little bit of tape so that this doesn't move, because I don't want to do it on my stamp wheel. And I don't care if this were to rip the paper or anything, because this is just the back. So we're just going to place that down. Okay, so I've cleaned off my stencil and I've made sure that it is completely dry because I'm going to be putting it back on this paper. If there is any water anywhere on your stencil, it will react to the ink on the paper and it may not look bad, but just keep that in consideration. I'll just tape a little bit here because I'm not using my sticky mat and I don't want it to accidentally move while I'm doing my inking. And when I say inking, I don't mean inking at all. I'm going to be using some white acrylic paint. So I'm just going to add some down here on the side. And I'm going to use a brush. I'm just going to add it there. Maybe add a little bit more here. Just making sure I'm not getting this totally any wet here without the ink. And so now I'm just going to splatter this as best as I can. I don't care if it's big blobs or small. I just want to make sure everything gets covered. Do be careful that your brush is not too wet because then you'll get water droplets and not just the ink. So we're just going to get a bunch of, just make sure every piece is covered with something, because this is going to be a snowstorm. Now some parts are going to react to the ink, like I said, because it is wet. But at least it's going to be like a white mess, like right here. There's one right there. But what I'm going to quickly do is I'm going to grab my heat gun and dry this as fast as I can. Okay, so there you go. It just creates this really neat, snowy, blizzard type effect. And it even comes on some of the trees here, you can see, just because of the way the stencil is working, but it's not covering the trees too much. So you just get a little bit, which is what I really like. So it really makes it look like a blizzard is happening out there. Okay, so I've gone through all the paper, and for this card we're going to be doing sketch number 10. And I like this one because I like to have the square on the top and the piece on the bottom, because I have my little element here that I colored and cut out. If you're wondering how I did such close cutting, I used these types of scissors. They're just meant for this type of fussy cutting, and I'm really, really happy with how it turned off. I was even able to get the little movement lines there without wrecking it. So that's really cute. So I can still have my little white border around it, but not being too thick. So to start the card off, I am going to just glue this right down to my base. I think my base is a little bit larger, so I'm going to trim that down. Okay, so now that that is set to the right size, I'm going to just glue that down, and that's going to be my background, this really wonderful snowy background. And that was very simple to make. It was just a couple steps, but yeah, it just makes very simple Christmas scene, and it's not hard to put together at all. Okay, so there's the background. That is looking so good. I love this. I just love the snowy. I love snow so much. So looking at this makes me think of like school's canceled tomorrow type feel. I then did cut out some mats here, and I chose the exact same color as the back panel so it doesn't take away from the background. I'm going to be introducing this brown and wood grain and then the red over there, and I'm going to do the same thing to the bottom one, but in this case I noticed that I had cut it incorrectly, so I'm just going to just glue that right to the top, and I'll show you why. So that I still have my border on the bottom, but because I have a border here, I can just put that flush, and now I have my equal border. Okay, so what we'll do is we'll just make sure that it's positioned in a nice proportionate way so that we have a nice border around and an equal border on the bottom here. So everything is pretty proportionate as best as you can. As long as these two, more likely as long as these ones are the same, but this looks like it's matching pretty well. Okay, and once that's in place, I'll glue this one down first because I'm not going to be doing any overlapping. So we can just glue that right there. And then the last piece is this one here. I could prop this up with some foam tape, but in this case, I'm going to create a nice flat card. And I'm just going to make sure that this is nice and center as best as I can. I'm just going to eyeball it, and I'm going to place that down there. This girl, I'm going to place her right here, so it looks like she's skiing by. And then I stamped the sentiment, enjoy the fun that winter brings. And it's the same color as the card background, and I'm going to place it right around there. And that's a very simple card. Let me see if I can think of any embellishments that I can add to this as I'm gluing this down. Now, as I'm doing this, I will tell you that this is a super sponsor hop featuring Crafty Kimmy. So this is Crafty Kimmy products that I'm using, the stamp and the stencil. That means that to be a super sponsor is they have provided some products for us to play with, to showcase their products, as well as giving inspiration to Kendra Card Challenge. And they also have provided prizes for Kendra Card that you guys can win. And so I would like to thank Crafty Kimmy's for being a super sponsor. It definitely helps the challenge out a lot. It brings more awareness to Kendra Card Challenge so that she can keep doing what she loves to do and offer more things to you guys to play and have fun. So I hope you're enjoying everything as well. And there we go. Now I'm going to see if there's any bling that I can put on this card, because I always have bling. I just never think about using it, or bling is hard. It really is. I have some pretty green ones. They kind of match the little circles here. They're supposed to be stars. What I'm going to do next is take these 3 stars. They come from Kendra Card Challenge and Pink and Main collaborated to create this die. And it's a 6x6 that allows you to create a bunch of these sketches here. And I'm going to take the stars there, and I cut them out in some green cardstock as best as I can with this color. And I'm going to place them like the sketch. However, I think this is going to have to swap around. I know that the color is not like that, but I don't have cardstock that is that color. And I think this is going to create some nice little pop to the card anyways. But I like the popple green. I think that's a fun, it definitely stands out. So if you don't like things standing out, then you may not like that, but I think it looks fantastic. I love it. And you can add some glitter to that, but it really makes this a more festive card, having these pops of green in there. Red would be another good option, just because it would tie in with this. But once again, red is very hard to find a match. I have very little red, and it's never the color I want. But I think this looks fantastic. So I do hope that you enjoyed this and has created some inspiration for you. And definitely don't forget to check out the others on the hop to see what they have created as well. So until the next time, have a wonderful, beautiful day, and I'll talk to you all later. Bye.